that is social change. In chapter 5 we have 3 sections. First section deals with villages in general. Second section deals with minorities. Third section deals with processes and agents of social change. First, let us discuss villages in general. In our syllabus, we have different concepts. One is significance of village studies. Significance of village studies. Indian village as a social system. Agrarian relations. Changing patterns of intercaste relations in the villages. Traditional settlement patterns. And impact of globalization on social relations in the villages. These are the topics that are there in our syllabus. First, let us discuss significance of village studies. For your exam, for easily remembering answer to this question, I am going to give you one statement. Please remember, for social, economic and political development of our country. For social, economic and political development of our country, we need to study the villages. Very simple. In what manner village studies are responsible for social development, economic development and political development. Majority, we have number of social problems in India. If you go to villages, we can come across many social problems. If you study the villages, you can understand the root causes of different social problems. If you know the root causes of different problems, then you can devise the measures so that we can deal with those social problems, so that social reconstruction of India can be brought about. Simple. Second one is economic development. India is basically an agrarian country. If you want to bring about economic development in India, really agriculture has to be developed. Why? Because agriculture has very huge employment potential. If you want to develop agriculture, if you study the villages, then you can understand the root causes or the problems of the agriculture. If you know the problems of agriculture, then you can devise different varieties of programs and plans for the development of agriculture in India. When the agriculture is developed in India, automatically we can bring about economic development. The next one is political development. Political development means here in India, in the preamble, we mentioned that India is a democratic country. In democratic country, the power is in the hands of people. For the realization of real democracy, especially in the rural areas, we resorted to democratic decentralization. In the beginning, the need for democratic decentralization was felt because of the village studies conducted by different anthropologists and sociologists. And after that also, after the implementation of democratic decentralization, in order to understand how this democratic decentralization is working, what are the problems that we are facing and how to overcome those problems, we need to study the villages so that we can make the democratic decentralization successful. Whenever you are devising different programs or plans for the social reconstruction of Indian society, for economic development and for political development, first of all, you should know the culture. Whatever the measures that you devise, they must be in tune with the culture of the people. If you devise any measure, even though it is a welfare measure, if it is against the cultural sentiments of the people, people will not accept. That's why to know the culture of India, the pure culture or the real culture of India lies in the villages. Even today also, 2/3 of the Indian population is living in villages. That's why if you study the villages, you can understand the culture. In tune with the culture, you can devise number of measures for social, economic and political development of India. Simple. If you remember like this, in the examination, without any mistake and without thinking, you can write all these points instantaneously. This is about significance of village studies. The second topic is Indian village as a social system. It implies we are considering Indian village as a social system. Generally, if you want to study the environment, we will take one basic unit, ecosystem. Similarly, if you want to study any one society, we will take one unit. In India, if you want to study Indian society, we will take that basic unit as Indian village. Now, can we consider Indian village as a social system? That is the meaning. Indian village as a social system. Here you have to write what are the characteristics of a society or social system. Then you have to analyze whether those characteristics are present with respect to Indian villages or not. For a society, what are the characteristics of the society? In a society, a group of people will be there. All these people are interlinked with each other by a web of social relationship. For a society to be formed, there must be a group of people. They are linked to each other by a web of social relationship. Second one is presence of likeness and differences. Presence of likeness and differences. Friendship, intimacy or association of any kind is possible only whenever there is likeness. Similarity in the way of thinking. Like-minded, like-bodied people can form one group, one stable group. That's why likeness is an important characteristic of society. If all the people think in similar manner, how is it possible to create dependency among those people? That's why presence of differences is also required. Whenever there is presence of differences, then only reciprocity in the society can be created. Then interdependency can be created. Because of interdependency, cooperation will be created so that the society can be maintained. That's why differences should also be there. But likeness is the major factor that has to be considered. The presence of differences is required. The presence of likeness is required. But the presence of differences is subordinated to a likeness. The third one is interdependency. Whenever there is presence of differences, then there will be creation of interdependency. Interdependency. Whenever there is interdependency, it leads to cooperation. Cooperation leads to formation of a stable group. And at the same time, presence of conflicts is also another important characteristic of the society. In the society, number of groups will be there. Because of the presence of these groups and because of the presence of conflicts, there may be splitting of the people into different groups. But within a group, because of the presence of conflicts, there will be creation of strong relations. Consider, for your easy understanding, don't write in the exam. Consider the society is divided into number of religions in Indian society. Hindus, Muslims. Even though the society is divided into different groups, at the time of communal conflicts, let us assume all the Hindus will form one group, all the Muslims will form one group. Because of the presence of conflict in one group, there will be increase in the cooperation, increase in the relations, strength of the relations. That's why conflict should also be there in a society. But here the major factor is cooperation. The presence of conflicts is subordinated to cooperation. And after this, for a society to survive, there must be some set of rules, some set of values, some set of beliefs. That's why in every society there must be one culture, one comprehensive culture must be there. And this grouping, society is nothing but a group of people who are interlinked with each other by a web of social relationship. This group must be a permanent group. Permanency is another group. Permanency. And at the same time, dynamism, changes. Gradually over a period of time, there must be some changes. These are the characteristics of a society. Every society consists of a group of people who are interlinked with each other by a web of social relationship. In the society, there must be likeness and differences. There must be interdependency. Cooperation and conflict should be there. A comprehensive culture should be there. That society or that village must be permanent. And finally, there must be some changes gradually over a period of time. These are the characteristics of a society. We can come across all the characteristics with respect to Indian villages. That's why we can consider Indian village as a social system. Simple. You need not to explain in detail. Write these characteristics and mention that all these characteristics are there with respect to Indian villages. That's why we can consider each Indian village as a social system. If you want to give, you can give examples also. Charismatic system. In the Charismatic system is nothing but intercaste, interfamily relationship pertaining to the patterning of superordinate and subordinate relationship. If you give that example, almost everything will be covered. In the Charismatic system is an academic institution in the villages that is comprised of number of people, number of castes are there, number of families are there. That's why a group of people are there. They are interlinked with each other by a web of social relationship. Likeness and differences will be there. Land owning families, landless families. Likeness and differences. Interdependency is there. Cooperation is there. Now and then conflicts are there. They have one normative, entire Charismatic system operates in a normative context. That means certain rules and regulations are there. And permanency. It has been operating from number of centuries. Of course, in the recent days it is gradually declining. Change is taking place. All these characteristics are there. All the characteristics of the society are there with respect to Indian villages. That's why we can consider each and every Indian village as a social system. This is about second concept. Agrarian relations in the villages I am not going to discuss. A Jamindari system, different general studies concept. That's why I am not going to discuss. Now let us discuss that. It is not so important for your exam. The next topic is changing patterns of intercaste relations. Here, how the relations among different castes were changed gradually over a period of time. There are four major changes. First one is decrease in the social distance. Decrease in the social distance between the higher caste and lower caste. Second one is status withdrawal or status reversal or proletarianism. Third one is hegemony of upper caste in the land ownership. And education. And hostility and tensions. These are the four changes, a set of changes. Whenever there is a set of changes or a set of relationship, that is called one pattern. Here, during the course of time, these major changes were brought about as a set. That's why these are the changed patterns. There is decrease in the social distance between the upper caste and lower caste. It is because of number of reasons. One is, and at the same time, status withdrawal or proletarianism. That means the status was reversed. For these two changes, There are a number of factors which are responsible. Sensitization, westernization, modernization, you can use this term, modernization, sensitization, modernization, desensitization. In sensitization, what happens? The lower caste imitate the lifestyle of the upper caste. In desensitization, higher caste, they liberalize the rigidities associated with caste system and they interact with the lower caste people freely. That is called desensitization. There is an anthropologist by name K.L. Sharma. He called this process as a desensitization. Achievement orientation in the Indian society. Achievement orientation. Once upon a time, status to a particular person is given on the basis of the birth in a particular caste, on the basis of the land ownership. Now it is not so. Education, achievements in the life, more the money or more the wealth or more the status in the politics or good representation in the government service. Achievements are important in the recognition of a particular person. That's why achievement orientation, because of the welfare measures taken by the government, the status of the lower caste was increased. That's why there was decrease in the social distance and status withdrawal. Achievement orientation and changes in the sources of power. Changes in the sources of power. Once upon a time, the source of power was the land. If you have more land, you will be more powerful. Nowadays, it is not so. Apart from land ownership, your representation in politics, your representation in government services, your representation in professional services are going to influence your status. That's why there are changes in the sources of power, because of even today also we can come across majority of the land under the control of higher caste, hegemony of the upper caste with respect to land ownership. Even with respect to higher education, we can come across hegemony of the upper caste. Hegemony means dominance. Even though there is hegemony of upper caste with respect to land ownership and education, these because the changes of sources of power were changed. Why? Because in the olden days, land ownership only was the deciding factor. Now, representation in the government service, politics, because of the reservation introduced by the government, and because of other welfare measures, we have achieved good representation of the lower caste people in the politics as well as in the government services. Because of those sources of power, the gap between upper caste and lower caste was decreased. And in some areas where the lower caste emerged as important groups in that society, there it has become unpalatable to the higher caste. In such circumstances, conflicts came into existence, and mutiny-like situations came into existence, and finally the hegemony of the upper caste was controlled in particular areas. Why? Because these lower caste people, the atrocities on the lower caste people is committed as a crime because of the laws enacted by the government, SC/ST Prevention of Atrocities Act. That's why wherever tensions came into existence, most of the times situations were settled in favor of the lower caste people. Ultimately, the dominance of the lower caste was decreased. These are the changed patterns. Once again, I am repeating, there are four major changes with respect to intercaste relations. One is decrease in the social distance between the higher caste and lower caste, status withdrawal or proletarianism, hegemony of the upper caste with respect to land ownership and education, hostility and tensions. This is about changed patterns of intercaste relations in the villages. Now let us discuss traditional settlement patterns. Very simple. Please remember, in the examination you have to draw this diagram. Generally students, they used to ask us that, sir, do we need to represent with good diagrams? Yes, diagrams are required, but not always. Relevancy is very, very important. Please remember, very simple. Draw 3 squares, one around the other. 1, 2, 3. 3 squares. In every village, there is one core area. In the traditional village, in every village, there is one core area. In the core area, we can come across upper caste. Peripheral area. In the peripheral area, we can come across lower caste. In the middle area, we can come across ascending caste or intermediary caste. Here, higher caste. Here, ascending caste or intermediary caste. Here, lower caste. In the core area, again, we can come across Brahmin colonies. Brahmins, they used to live in the form of agraharams. In every village, we can come across 3 zones or 3 areas: core area, peripheral area, and intermediate area or buffer area. In the core area, we can come across higher caste and the Brahmins. Brahmins especially is to live in the agraharams. And in the outskirts of the villages, we can come across again. In the outskirts of the villages, again we can come across the colonies of the untouchables. The colonies of the untouchables. This is the traditional rural settlement pattern. And if you write only these points, they are not sufficient. You have to give explanation. Generally, the core area will be at higher altitude. The core area will be at higher altitude. In the core area, we can come across major amenities: presence of schools, temples, and places of public gatherings. In villages, now and then there will be conflicts. All the people gather together to settle those disputes. That's why whenever people want to gather, there must be one place of public gathering that will be there in this area. Why? Because higher caste people will not come to the place of the lower caste people in the traditional rural settlement. And it will be located at higher altitude. And the areas where the untouchables have been living will be located at lower altitudes. What is the reason? Why? Because during rainy season, whenever there is rain, water flows from the core area to this peripheral area. That means water first touches this area and later this area. If water comes in reverse direction, higher caste people will not tolerate. That's why in the olden days, by considering all these factors, they created the village settlement patterns like this. And that too, in the core areas, we can come across good drainage facilities, and here there will not be any drainage facilities or very poor drainage facilities. That's why during rainy season there will be accumulation of water in these areas. And in some areas you can come across again in these areas where the untouchables have been living, we can come across splitting. If you go to Andhra Pradesh, in Andhra Pradesh you can come across the untouchable areas in the form of 2 colonies, Mala colonies and Madiga colonies. And apart from this, the location of the colonies of the untouchables is also another important factor. Many of my students know about this. In India, in major parts of India, we used to get rains because of monsoons. Southwest monsoons, this is India. Southwest monsoons come in these directions. Northeast monsoons come in this direction. When southwest monsoon is coming, air flows in this direction. That's why here consider this is one village. Southwest monsoon is coming in this direction. That's why the colonies of the untouchables will be here. Why? Because air touches first the higher caste people, later the lower caste people. That's why to have this type of arrangement, to avoid the pollution of the so-called pure caste or so-called higher caste by the air touched by the lower caste people, they created this type of settlement pattern. You can predict the direction of the SC colonies or ST colonies in this area. Here, because of northeast monsoons, the winds come in this direction. That means in this direction. That's why colonies will be located here. Okay, in the examination, draw these diagrams. 3 diagrams you have to draw. First diagram, draw like this colony. Draw 3 squares, one around the other. Then in the core square, mention like this, Brahmins and other higher castes. Then intermediary castes, lower castes, untouchables. Okay. Then this is in general. Then another diagram. Same representation, but mention the colonies of SCs and STs in this direction. In another diagram, mention the colonies of the SCs and STs in this direction. Total you have to draw 3 diagrams. If the question is asked on this concept in the exam, draw these diagrams. Diagrams are very, very important for this question. Now let us discuss the last topic in 5.1 chapter, that is impact of globalization on the social relations in the villages. Impact of globalization on social relations in the villages. You have to remember total 3 points here mainly. Because of globalization, multinational companies came to India. They started investing. For facilitating the investment by the multinational companies, governments started acquiring lands. They are also acquiring lands. Some people are acquiring lands nearer to urban areas. Some people are acquiring lands in the rural areas. Land acquisition in the rural areas. Land acquisition in the rural areas and establishment of industries in the rural areas. Establishment of industries. And because of the investments by the multinational companies, especially in the IT sector, many rural people started migrating to urban centers. And at the same time, in different industries also, to work in different industries also, the people are migrating to urban centers. Migration to urban centers. See here, because of land acquisition and establishment of industries, because of land acquisition, the total amount of land that is under cultivation is decreased, and because of the establishment of industries, pollution is being generated. Because of pollution, again, the agriculture in the surrounding areas was declined. And at the same time, because of availability of alternatives, many people, especially lower caste people who have been working in the lands of the higher caste people, they started working in different industries. Ultimately, there was decline of agriculture. Because of decline of agriculture, the dependency of lower caste on the upper caste. You have to remember this point. Ultimately, because of land acquisition, establishment of industries, there was decline of agriculture. Because of decline of agriculture, the dependence of the lower caste and the upper caste was decreased. And because of the migration to urban centers, the people were exposed to modern forces of urbanization and industrialization. Because of that, there were changes in the families, there were changes in the attitude, psychosocial impacts. That's why, which have repercussions on their social relations in the villages. That's why here there were changes in the family and changes in the simply you can write psychosocial impacts. What are those psychosocial? That's why I told you, you have to remember total 3 points. One is dependence because of decline of agriculture, the dependency of the lower caste on the higher caste was decreased. This is only for your understanding. In the examination, you have to remember these 3 points. One is decrease in the dependency dependency of lower caste on upper caste. Second one is changes in the family system. Changes in the family. Changes in the family. Third one is psychosocial impacts. Psychosocial impacts. So, because of decrease in the dependence of the lower caste and the upper caste, the rigidities associated with associated with caste system are decreased. That means occupational restrictions were relaxed. Then the disabilities imposed on the lower caste were decreased. The commensal taboos were relaxed. Endogamous restrictions were relaxed. That's why the rigidities associated with the caste system were relaxed or decreased. Second one is changes in the family. Joint family system gave rise to nuclear family system. Some people left the villages to work in urban centers by leaving their parents in the villages. That's why nuclear families came into existence. Nuclear families. And that too, in the olden days, people used to acquire skills from the parents, and that too they used to practice traditional hereditary occupations. Because of the traditional hereditary occupations, the dependence of the children on the parents was more. That's why there was good respect to the parents. Now it is not so. They are going to different industries, they are working, they are going to training in different areas, they are acquiring new skills, they are working in different industries. That's why the dependency of the children or the young age people and the parents was decreased. That's why the psychosocial authority of the elders was decreased. And at the same time, whenever the dependence on the parents decreases for the sake of resources, for the sake of acquisition of skills, for the sake of earning money, what happens? The authority of the elders decreases. Automatically, there will be increase in the incidence of love marriages. Whenever there is increase in the incidence of love marriages, what happens? There will be increase in the divorce also. Apart from those things, family ceased to be the unit of production. Family became a unit of consumption. Within a single family, we can come across people working in different places. That means they are exposed to different forces. That's why we can come across diversity in the way of thinking. All these are the changes with respect to family. Other psychosocial impacts are nothing but the relations have become highly superficial. The spirit of mutual help was decreased. The community festivals, the charm or the importance of community festivals were decreased. All these are the other psychosocial impacts. If you remember these three, you can easily write answer to this question. First one is the dependency of the lower caste and the upper caste was decreased. That's why the rigidities associated with the caste system were decreased. And because of the employment opportunities in industrial centers and urban centers, nuclear families came into existence. Family ceased to be the unit of production. Psychosocial authority of the elders was decreased. The incidence of love marriages were increased. The frequency of divorces were increased. And diversity in the way of thinking within the family increased. And with respect to other psychosocial impacts, all the relations have become highly superficial. The spirit of mutual help was decreased. Community festivals were decreased. And the two segment relations came into existence, or second relations came into existence. People started forming different associations, teachers association, doctors association, lawyers association, like that. So secondary groups came into existence. All these are the impacts of globalization on social relations in the villages. This is about 5.1. 5.2 minorities. There is a gender studies concept. The only thing that you should know is problems of the minorities. Very simple. Problems of minorities. First one is prejudice prejudices and discrimination. Not only in India but also in other parts of the world, all the minorities face this problem. Prejudices and discrimination. Prejudice means prejudged attitude or predetermined attitude towards minorities, and discrimination means we are taking some actions against particular minorities even though they are similarly qualified when compared with other people. Second one is problem of preserving their distinct culture, language and script. Fear of insecurity. This is general studies concept, that's why I am not going to explain in detail. Communal disturbances or communal violence. Inadequate representation in politics and government services. Uniform civil code. Separatist tendencies. And the problems created because of these separatist tendencies. These are the main problems. These are, you can give in general explanation, and other aspects that you should know are nothing but the measures taken for the development of minorities. Constitutional measures, legislative measures and administrative measures. Administrative measures means different schemes. They are general concepts, that's why I am not explaining. Now let us discuss 5.3, the process of socio-cultural change, the processes of socio-cultural change and agents of socio-cultural change. In our syllabus, 3 processes are mentioned. They are sensitization, westernization and modernization. This is indigenous process, these two are exogenous processes. Agents of socio-cultural change, in our syllabus they mentioned 2 agents, one is PRIs, second one is media. First let us discuss sensitization. In the sensitization, you must know first one is definition. You have to practice the definition. After that, models of sensitization. After that, criticism. First, let us discuss definition. M.N. Srinivas, in his book Religion and Society Among the Cooks of South India, Social Change in Modern India, he defined like this: sensitization is a process by which a low caste or tribe or any other group, imitates customs, rituals, ideology and way of life of higher castes, more frequently twice born castes. Once again I am repeating, sensitization is a process by which a low caste or tribe or any other group emulates the customs, rituals, ideology and way of life of higher caste, more frequently the twice born caste. That is the definition. In the examination you have to write the definition as such. Here in the sensitization there will be imitation of the lifestyle of the upper caste by the lower caste. Here 4 major castes are being imitated: Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras. That's why 4 models: Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras. In Brahminic model of sensitization, Brahmin way of life will be adapted. In Kshatriya model of sensitization, Kshatriya's lifestyle will be adapted. Similarly here also. In the examination, write what are the components of Brahminic way of life, what are the components of Kshatriya way of life, what are the components of Vaishya way of life, what are the components of Shudra way of life. I did not give explanation briefly. Brahminic way of life, adoption of vegetarianism, adoption of non-alcoholism and teetotalism, adoption of less defiling occupations, giving more importance to sons, adoption of marriage code of Brahmins, adopting Sanskritic rituals, adopting the hiring the service of the Brahmins, and prohibition of widow remarriages. All these are the characteristics of Brahminic way of life. Kshatriya way of life, adoption of dress code of Kshatriyas, wearing sacred thread. One minute. Adoption of Kshatriya dress code, wearing sacred thread, worshipping Vedic deities, carrying different varieties of Vedic rituals, and changing the surnames or titles or different components of Kshatriya way of life. Vaishya way of life is similar to Brahminic way of life, but here with respect to occupations, they are more oriented towards commercial occupation. Sudra way of life, Shudra, please remember, Shudras are not untouchables. Untouchables are different. Untouchables imitate the lifestyle of the Shudras. Donating money for the construction of different temples and having regular baths, visiting different temples, adoption of less defiling occupations, celebrating different varieties of festivals. All these are the components of Shudra way of life. Here examples are very, very important for your exam. What are the examples for Brahminic model of sensitization? Lingayats in Karnataka. Lingayats in Karnataka. Lingayats belong to different castes. Before the adoption of Shaivism, after the adoption of Shaivism, they followed the Brahminic model of life. That is one. Second one is Smiths. Smiths of South India, they also adopted the Brahminic way of life. And Koris of Eastern Uttar Pradesh. Koris of the Eastern Uttar Pradesh. They served the Brahmins. Later they adopted the lifestyle of the Brahmins. In due course of time, they got recognition. Examples. If you give more examples, you will get more marks in the examination. Lingayats of Karnataka, Smiths of South India, Koris of Eastern Uttar Pradesh, they followed Brahminic model of sensitization. Kshatriya model of sensitization. Marathas or Guljars. Marathas, Shivaji, the caste of Shivaji, Marathas. After that, Khatris of Punjab, Kayasthas of Uttar Pradesh, Noniyas of Uttar Pradesh, Marwars of Tamil Nadu, Marathas of Maharashtra region, Khatris of Punjab, Kayasthas of Uttar Pradesh, Noniyas of Uttar Pradesh, Marwars of South India, Tamil Nadu, they adopted the Kshatriya model of sensitization. For Vaishya model of sensitization, Thelis of Orissa, Thelis means oil extracting caste, Thelis, then Kanbis of Gujarat. For Shudra model of sensitization, laundrymen of Western Uttar Pradesh, Don't mention Uttar Pradesh, Western Uttar Pradesh. Why? Because in the eastern part of Uttar Pradesh, the laundrymen did not follow the Shudra model of sensitization. That's why they are still considered as untouchables. But these people are not considered as untouchables nowadays in the western part of Uttar Pradesh. And Bangis in Delhi. Examples are very, very, very important. These are the different models and examples. Now let us discuss criticism. There is an anthropologist by name J.F. Stahl. He criticized the term sensitization. Here there is imitation of the lifestyle of the upper caste by the lower caste. The relationship of Sanskrit to this process is extremely complicated. The Brahminic way of life is based on Vedic texts. Those Vedic texts were written in Sanskrit. That's why based on that language, using this term is not advisable according to J.F. Star. The relationship of the term Sanskrit to the concept of Sanskritization is extremely complicated. There is another anthropologist by name Yogendra Singh. Yogendra Singh said that the Sanskritization, the concept of Sanskritization proposed by M.N. Srinivas failed to lead to a consistent theory to explain the process of cultural change. Nowadays, the cultural change is brought about not only because of Sanskritization, mainly because of Westernization and Modernization. In the olden days, Sanskritization was responsible for cultural change, but nowadays, the major factor for the socio-cultural change or the major process of socio-cultural change is nothing but Modernization. That's why it is not a consistent theory to explain the socio-cultural change. According to M.N. Srinivas, Sanskritization has pan-India pattern, but according to Yogendra Singh, it is not so. Only some castes here and there followed the process of Sanskritization. And according to Harold Goud, Sanskritization is not the imitation of the lifestyle of the upper caste by the lower caste. It is not imitation per se. It is an expression of revolt of the lower caste against the dominance of the upper caste. Here the upper caste people, they have specific dress patterns. Now the lower caste people are also following the same dress patterns, not as an imitation. To challenge the dominance of the upper caste, to challenge the monopoly of different dress patterns of the upper caste, different food habits, different other ways of life. That's why it is not imitation per se, it is an expression of revolt of the lower caste by the upper caste. That is another criticism. According to M.N. Srinivas, during the process of Sanskritization, the lower caste imitate the lifestyle of the upper caste. But if you go to Tamil Nadu and some other areas, entire caste did not follow the process of Sanskritization. Only individual families follow the Sanskritization. Individual families follow the process of Sanskritization, but not the entire caste. And at the same time, according to M.N. Srinivas, dominant caste acts as a model for Sanskritization. But if you go to Tamil Nadu, there is one place by name Kongu Nadu. In Kongu Nadu, Vellalas are the dominant caste people, but they adopted the Brahminic way of life. That means dominant caste is not always the model caste. Dominant caste is not the model caste always. And that too, here in the Sanskritization process in Hinduism, upper caste and lower castes are there. For the upper caste, number of privileges are given and the lower caste, number of disabilities are imposed. That's why the lower caste want to enhance their status within the existing system. No one is against this system. It is just Sanskritization is providing only positional change but not the structural change. They are accepting the system, presence of privileges to the higher caste, presence of disabilities or imposition of disabilities on the lower caste. No one is against the system. Everyone wants to improve their status in the existing system only. That's why it is not about the structural change, it is just a positional change. These are the criticisms leveled against Sanskritization concept. Here, definition you have to remember models of Sanskritization, 4 models and the examples and criticism. Once upon a time, 10 years back, Sanskritization was a very important question, but nowadays they are not asking questions from Sanskritization concept. Even if they want to ask, they will ask 10 marks question only. But you must have awareness regarding all the components of this concept. Westernization, in the previous class, even though we did not discuss, in the 3rd chapter we have impact of Christianity, impact of Westernization, all are same only. That's why I am not going to explain. Now let us discuss modernization. Modernization. This is not there in many textbooks. Modernization. In this concept, there are many components in this concept, but for your exam, one important components I am going to discuss. First, definitions we are going to discuss are meaning. After that, characteristics, prerequisites, instruments, and finally responses, different responses to the process of modernization. These components, any component can be asked as a 10 marks question. First let us discuss definitions. We have two sets of definitions. Classical definitions are old definitions and modern definitions are new definitions. Old definitions are with respect to economy. New definitions are with respect to science and technology. Modernization means in our society we are introducing the elements of science and technology. Modernized classroom means here more equipment, more scientific equipments will be there so that delivery of lectures will be so easy. That means our life becomes comfortable. That's why the modern definitions are with respect to science and technology. But because of the introduction of science and technology, the nature of the economy was changed. Once upon a time, our economy was primarily agriculture. Now it changed to primarily industrial and service sector based economy. In the olden days, they gave the definition like this. There are two important definitions. It is change in economy and its related effects on social values and practices. Very simple. Modernization is nothing but change in economy and its related effects on social values and practices. Very simple. Another one is the change in economy from primarily agriculture to primarily industrial economy. It is a process which changed the economy from primarily agricultural economy to primarily industrial economy. Very simple. It's a change in economy and its related effects on social values and practices, or it is a process that changed the economy from primarily agricultural to primarily industrial economy. The modern definitions, they are also very simple. It's a very simple definition. It's a social change involving the elements of science and technology. Very simple. It's a social change involving the elements of science and technology. Very simple. Another definition is introduction of science and technology. Introduction of science and technology with the ultimate purpose of achieving a satisfied life or better life. I will give definition. First definition is it's a social change involving the elements of science and technology. Second definition is it's a process by which the modern scientific knowledge is introduced in our society with the ultimate objective of achieving a better and more satisfied life. It is a process through which modern scientific knowledge is introduced in the society with the ultimate purpose of achieving a better and more satisfied life. These are the definitions. Definitions must be very clear, then only you will get good marks. The students who get 300 and 330 marks, the only difference is presentation with good definitions. Now let us discuss characteristics. With respect to characteristics, we can divide the characteristics into economic characteristics, political characteristics, cultural characteristics, and others. Economic characteristics. I told you first definition, it is a change in economy and its related effects on social values and practices. That's why here introduction of a high level of technology in the economy, thereby leading to increase in secondary and tertiary occupations as against primary occupations. Introduction of a high level of technology, thereby leading to increase in secondary and tertiary occupation. Second one is growing specialization of economic rules. Growing specialization of economic rules. Nowadays, more and more professions are coming into existence, more and more rules are coming into existence. Third one is growth of Growth of scope and complexity of major markets. Growth of scope and complexity of major markets for goods, labor and money. Because of introduction of science and technology, the labor from India are getting demand from Western countries. Am I correct or not? Our software engineers. These are the three important economic characteristics. Introduction of a high level of technology, thereby leading to increase in secondary and tertiary occupations as against primary occupations, growing specialization of economic rules, growth of the scope and complexity of major markets for goods, labor and money. With respect to political characteristics, decrease in the traditional legitimization of the rulers. Traditional legitimization of rulers. In the olden days, based on the traditions, the rulers were given recognition, legitimacy. Now it is not so. Weakening of ascriptive political commitment. Weakening of ascriptive political commitment. Very easy understanding, I can say. Ascriptive political commitment means by birth we are committed to a particular political group or a group of people. Kattappa in Bahubali. And increase in the accountability. Increase in the accountability. To be precise, ideological accountability of the rulers to the ruled. Even our Prime Minister Modi ji also is accountable to us. He is showing his accountability by organizing Monkey Bath. And increase in spread of the power to the wider sections, spread of the power to wider sections of the society and ultimately into the hands of the people. These are the political characteristics. Decrease in the traditional legitimization of the rulers, weakening of ascriptive political commitment to the rulers or a group of rulers, increase in the ideological accountability of the rulers, spread of the power to the wider sections of the society. These are the characteristics, political characteristics. Cultural characteristics. There is growing differentiation. There is growing differentiation of value systems of the society. That means they started dividing each and everything, religion, science, magic, like this, economy, polity, like that. There is growing differentiation of value systems and emergence of a new cultural outlook. New cultural outlook. Emphasizing happiness. Once upon a time, moksha. Now it is not so. Happiness is more important. Happiness, individuality, dignity, efficiency, etc. For your easy remembrance, I can give you one mnemonic: HIDE. Happiness, individuality, dignity and efficiency. These are the cultural characteristics. Other characteristics, increase in the literacy levels and development of media are the other characteristics. Sometimes characteristics of modernization can be asked for 10 marks. Now the prerequisites for the modernization to happen in a particular society, what are the prerequisites? First of all, a vision for the future. That means an eye on the future. An eye on the future. Second one is an awareness on the existence of other societies. Awareness on the existence of other societies. Third one is availability of a variety of opportunities and roles in other societies as well as in our society. In our society, now we have metros in different cities in India. But before the adoption of metros, first of all, we should know that there is Japan. That means awareness on the existence of other societies. And we should know what are the opportunities available there. That's why here, availability of different opportunities and roles. In order to bring about all these developments, first of all, there must be good leadership. That's why emergence of good leadership. Emergence of leadership, dynamic, committed leadership, and finally emotional preparedness. Emotional preparedness. Emotional preparedness. Sometimes questions may be asked, define modernization and what are the prerequisites for modernization. These are the 5 prerequisites. An eye on the future, awareness on the existence of other societies, availability of a variety of opportunities and roles, emergence of a dynamic and committed leadership, and emotional preparedness. What are the instruments to bring about modernization? What is modernization? It is nothing but a social change involving the elements of science and technology. In order to develop science and technology, education must be there. Education creates the skills. Education is responsible for innovations. Now many innovations are brought about by the engineers. It is because of education only. That's why education is one instrument. For the dissemination of technology, media is also very, very important. Or communication. Media or communication. Whenever there is good communication, especially through advertisements, this technology can be spread. Third one is leadership, a charismatic leadership. A charismatic leader can motivate the people to accept the process of modernization. Sometimes there may be some elements to resist the process of modernization. In such circumstances, the government must be coercive. Coercive government authority. These are the 4 instruments of modernization. First one is education, second one is communication, third one is charismatic leadership, and the fourth one is coercive government authority. What are the responses to the process of modernization? This can be asked as a separate question. Responses to the process of modernization, 10 marks question. There are 5 ways of responses. For a particular process of modernization, different societies may respond in different ways. All those responses can be categorized into 5 ways. Receptive response. Receptive response. Receptive response. The government, in order to improve the efficiency of administration, if the government want to modernize the administration through IT, some people may reject it. Why? Because of the usage of IT, accountability will be increased. That's why some traditional elements may reject the modernization process. Second one is disjunctive response. Disjunctive response. When the modernization operates as a detached development without affecting the traditional order. Consider adoption of tractor. Whenever we adopt tractor to carry out agriculture, the traditional order is not going to be disturbed. That's why that is a disjunctive response. Disjunctive response. When the modernization operates as a detached development, then that is called disjunctive response. Assimilative response. Assimilative response. See, if you go to many of the Indian villages, we can come across practice of agriculture by tractors by some large farmers, practice of agriculture by using bulls by the small farmers. But if you go to some modernized areas, especially Punjab, we can come across only modern equipment. In such areas, the modernized elements are assimilated into traditional fold. That means the people started worshipping tractors also instead of bulls. At the time of carrying out cultivation, at the time of beginning cultivation, we used to worship the tractors also by applying turmeric paste, saffron powder, everything. Assimilative response. Then supportive response. When the modernization is responsible for strengthening the traditional order, then that is called supportive response. Now the media, especially television programs, they are responsible for the easy dissemination of religious ideas. That's why modernization is responsible for supporting the existing traditional order. Then destructive response. Destructive response. When the modernization is responsible for the destruction of the traditional order, Jasmani system, that is called destructive response. These are the 5 ways of response. What is the disjunctive response? Means modernization will be there along with the traditional order. when the modern elements are introduced into the society without disturbing the traditional order. In the olden days, even today also, if you go to rural areas, people used to carry out agriculture with the help of animals. And if you introduce tractors and modernization, people are accepting it. And at the same time, they are not replacing the bulls. Simultaneously, both are existing. If you go to developed areas, that means Punjab, more modernization is there. People, they were completely adapted to modernization of agriculture. There you can come across only tractors. That's why when there is replacement or completely, whenever that is absorbed completely into the fold of traditional order, then that is called assimilative response. When it operates as a detached development without affecting the traditional order, then that is called disjunctive response. Rejective response, disjunctive response, assimilative response, supportive response, and destructive response. For your exam, definitions are important, prerequisites are important, responses are important. Now let us discuss the agents of socio-cultural change. One is Panchayat Raj institutions, second one is media. The impact of the government of India introduced Panchayat Raj system in order to bring about democratic decentralization. Because of this democratic decentralization, certain social changes were brought about. What are those changes? Try to present your answer under 5 subheads. One is with respect to power, clan and caste. Second one is women. Third one is Grama Sabhas. Fourth one is regular elections. Fifth one is human development. Okay. First one is issues of power, clan and caste. Before the introduction of Panchayat Raj Act or before the introduction of democratic decentralization, elections were there, panchayats were there, elections were there, but reservation facilities were not there. That's why most of the times, 99% of the times, the higher caste people, they used to contest the elections. Lower caste people never dared to contest the elections also. But because of the reservation facilities provided through the Panchayat Raj institutions, the lower caste people started contesting the elections and they reached the power positions. That's why the elite nature of the rural polity was changed. That is the first change. And at the same time, we came across proxy system. Even today also in many areas, even though there is reservation facility, only the nominees of the lower caste people who are the nominees of the upper caste people started contesting the elections. That's why the ultimate purpose of introducing the reservation in Panchayat Raj institutions was defeated. Even though that purpose was defeated, in some areas, that power has a unique taste. That's why the people, even though they are the proxies of the upper caste, once they taste the power of once they taste the taste of the power, then they started asserting their independence, they started taking independent decisions. That's why we observed some changes. We broke the elite nature of the rural polity. Wherever the lower caste tried to resist the dominance of the upper caste, we observed some clashes also. Those are the changes with respect to power, clan and caste. Second one is women. Here, women are the weaker sex. In Indian society, they have very less representation, they have very less voice. Because of the one-third reservation provided for the women through Panchayat Raj Act, the many women started contesting the elections and they reached the power positions and they have taken independent decisions also. But here also the same problem we observed, proxy system. In many areas, women who were the representatives of their husbands or their brothers, they contested the elections, they reached the power positions. And here, like that of lower caste, asserting independence was very, very less. Proxy system is still there with respect to women representation in India. But in some areas, some independent women contested the elections, they reached the power positions and they have taken very important decisions, especially with respect to education, with respect to women's rights. There they contributed for the development of women also. Grama Sabhas are nothing but the village assembly. Here, Grama Sabha consists of all the adult members of the village. They used to take, all the people used to gather together and they used to take some decisions. But here, because of the reservation and in order to avoid accountability, certain discouraging trends were observed with respect to Grama Sabha meetings. The upper caste people tried to convene Grama Sabha meetings without giving notice to lower caste people. And sometimes they are not at all conducting the Gram Sabha meetings, very rarely. That's why people lost their interest. That's why the participation in the Gram Sabha meetings by the lower caste people was decreased. But in some areas, the lower caste people, they participated in the Gram Sabha meetings and they ensured the adequate flow of funds for the development of amenities in the SC colonies and ST colonies. That's why we observed some development in the SC colonies and ST colonies. Regular elections. Before the enactment of Panchayat Raj Act, elections were not regular. Through the Panchayat Raj Act, we have provided for State Election Commission to conduct regular elections. That's why regular elections has become a reality. Now, because of regular elections, accountability was increased. Accountability of the rulers to the people was increased. And no caste, even in case of dominant caste also, we cannot come across 50% numerical dominance in any village. That's why we came across cooperation among different castes for the sake of success in the elections. Cooperation among the castes was increased. And at the same time, the lower caste people started contesting the election. Lower caste people increased their participation. Why? Because of the option, because of the regular elections, in order to emerge as successful candidates, they started forming different alliances with the different castes. That's why the lower caste people, the intermediate caste people, they got chances to contest the elections to reach the power positions. That's why the participation of the lower caste people in the elections was increased. And human development, because of the flow of funds to the Panchayat Raj institutions, human development was achieved. In many areas we can come across MP schools, Mandala Parishad schools, ZP high schools like this. All these schools are being run with the funds given to the Panchayat Raj institutions. That's why human development was also achieved because of the Panchayat Raj institutions. In the examination, presentation is very, very important. Now let us discuss the impact of media on social change. Media can influence each and every aspect of our life. That's why we are going to discuss the impact of media in the social sphere, in the economic sphere, in the political sphere, in the religious sphere, in the cultural sphere. First, let us discuss the impact of media in the social sphere. Media means it can be print media or electronic media. Even TVs are also, that means television, come under the category of media. Especially because of TV serials, what is happening? The family relations are weakening. Husband may come from work, but wife may be busy in watching the serials, because of which there is a weakening of relations. That's why weakening of family relations. Because of weakening of family relations, we observed increase in the incidence of divorces. And at the same time, because of media, the women realized their rights. They were able to assert their independence from the dominance of the husband and his relatives. That's why there is increase in the incidence of divorces, and there is a weakening of institution of marriage. Because of media, people came to know about the availability of alternatives to the marriage system like live-in relationship because of media only. That's why there is weakening of the institution of marriage. And at the same time, media exposed the exploitation of the weaker sections of the society, exploitation of the females, exploitation of the children, and oppression of the lower caste by the upper caste. That's why exploitation was exposed. Exploitation of weaker sections of the society was exposed. With respect to economic sphere, there is increase in the awareness. with regard to availability of different varieties of employment opportunities. For your ease understanding, I will tell one example, Naukri.com. By registering yourself in Naukri.com, you can get the availability awareness regarding the availability of opportunities in different parts of the country, and at the same time the transactions are made easy. These are the two changes with respect to economic sphere. And with respect to political sphere, increase in the political awareness. The lower caste people, they came to know about the rights or the protective measures taken by the government. Second one is, they are responsible for generating political interest, especially at the time of elections. Political interest, they stimulated political interest, and at the same time they are responsible for influencing political outcomes also. The media can project a normal person as a big leader also, and apart from this, media acts as a watchdog on the functioning of the government. It acts as a watchdog on corruption, nepotism, favoritism, all these aspects. And with respect to religious sphere, the spread of religious ideas has become so easy. In almost majority of the TV channels in the morning times, we can come across religious programs. That's why the spread of religious ideas have become so easy, and pilgrimages have become so easy. You can come across, because through media only, through newspaper or through electronic media, we can come to know about the rush in Tirumala. Accordingly, we can plan. That's why the pilgrimages have become so easy. And at the same time, because of the availability of this electronic media, especially CCTV cameras, the causes for communal violence were exposed. The causes for communal violence. How a clash was started, what are the reasons for communal violence, the causes for communal riots or communal violence were exposed. These are with respect to religious sphere. And with respect to cultural sphere and mental outlook, there were certain changes. One is cultural homogenization. Because of media, we came to know about the availability of different varieties of dress patterns, food habits in different parts of the world, and all of us are following the same way of lifestyle. That's why cultural homogenization is the one change. And cultural revivalism or revitalization. At the time of festivals, at the time of Vijayadashmi, at the time of Diwali, you can come across in different TV programs the traditional dress patterns, traditional foods, all those things. That's why cultural homogenization is one consequence. Cultural revivalism is another consequence. Third one is decrease in the status of women. See, for any woman to become an anchor in the TV, first of all, she must be beautiful, she must have good structures. This is mentioned in NCERT sociology textbook. Women are projected as objects with sexy figures. That means the status of the woman was reduced to an object. That's why the status of the woman was decreased because of the media. And media is responsible for deviating the people from reality. If there is one disturbance in one particular part in the city, consider in Hyderabad, in Usmania University, if there is some disturbance, all the media channels concentrate on the Usmania University. Then the people in different parts of the country, they used to feel that there are a lot of disturbances in Hyderabad, even though they are not taking place. That's why media has the power to deviate the people from the reality, and it is responsible for motivating the passivity in the life. In the absence of media, in the olden days, people used to play different games. But because of availability of media, everyone is sitting in the room and simply they are watching movies and serials by sitting in the home. That's why passivity was increased. and at the same time it is responsible for motivating the people for escapism. In different varieties of crime stories, separate programs are being run by different channels like Crime Watch, Crime Stories. In those stories they used to explain even with the graphics how to commit a crime and how to escape. That's why they are projecting this media is responsible for promoting escapism also. These are the impacts of media. This is about 5th chapter. Today we have discussed significance of village studies, Indian village as a social system, then impact of globalization on social relations, changing patterns of intercaste relations in the villages, traditional rural settlement patterns, then problems of minorities. Then I forgot to discuss the great traditions and little traditions. They are very easy. Great traditions are nothing but traditions of the urban people. Little traditions are nothing but traditions of the rural people. And there is interplay of great traditions and little traditions. Whenever great traditions, little traditions, whenever there is flow of great tradition elements in downward direction and integration with little traditions, then that is called parochialization. The reverse movement of traditions is called universalization. In the examination you have to write like this. Downward movement is called devolution, upward movement is called evolution. Devolution of great traditions into little traditions is called parochialization. Evolution of little traditions into great traditions is called universalization. Civilization consists of traditions. Different traditions are there. All the traditions can be divided into two categories: great traditions and little traditions. Great traditions are nothing but traditions of urban people. Little traditions are nothing but traditions of rural people. And the interaction between great traditions and little traditions can be explained with the help of two processes. One is parochialization, second one is universalization. Parochialization means downward devolution of great traditional elements and their integration with little traditional elements. Universalization means upward evolution of little traditional elements into great traditional elements. What are the examples for parochialization? Great traditional festivals are converted into little traditional festivals. What are the examples? Govardhan Puja was converted into Govardhan Puja. Navaratri Puja was converted into Navaratha Puja. And what are the examples for universalization? Salno festival was converted into Rakhi Bandhan or Raksha Bandhan. And Saurati Puja was converted into Lakshmi Devi Puja at the time of Diwali. These are the examples. Actually, the concept of great traditions and little traditions was introduced by Robert Redfield, but he failed to identify the interaction between the great traditions and little traditions. Later, another person, McKim Marriott studied the interaction between great traditions and little traditions, and he explained the interaction of great traditions and little tradition through parochialization and universalization concept. Questions may be asked like this. Define civilization, explain the dynamics of civilization. Sometimes directly they may ask interplay of great traditions and little traditions. Sometimes they may ask distinguish great traditions and little traditions. Later we have discussed sensitization, modernization, and the Panchayat Raj institutions as social change and media as social change. With this, the 5th chapter is over. Tomorrow we will discuss the 2nd chapter and 4th chapter, so that you can write the exam on Friday and on our first exam, which is on chapter 2, 3, 4 and 5 of paper 2. Okay, I hope this is useful for you, and after going to room, read the same concepts and try to write them on the paper, so that you will get more command, so that you can write very well in the exam. Okay, thank you.